This is Top Accolade Global News Updates. I am Soybifa Jackard. Israel's war with Palestinian militant group Hamas has upended expectation of where Israeli short-term interest rates are headed as policymakers try to balance a sliding shekel and slowing economy with already above target inflation. Less than 3 weeks ago, markets and analysts were predicting at least one more rate hike by early 2024, possible as soon as this week after an aggressive run of tightening that took the benchmark interest rates from 0.1% in April 2022 to 4.75% in May 2023. But after Hamas gunmen from Gaza launched the deadliest attack on Israel's civilians in the country's history on October 7th, expectations swung to focus on sharp rate cuts before settling on a slightly softer easing path. He pointed to the lack of clear forward guidance from the Bank of Israel after it held rates on Monday for the third time in a row, saying it's now had room to take a flexible approach given the very high uncertainty around the conflict and the effects of financial markets and economic activity. Prior to the attack, markets had priced in around a 40% chance of a rate hike to 5.0% at the October 23rd meeting, said Bank Hapoalim Chief Strategic Moody Shafri, with the central bank already having warned it would act again if shekel weakness drove inflation higher. When markets opened on the Monday after the attack, the shekel slid more than 2.5% in its biggest daily decline since the market turmoil of March 2020. The early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Bank of Israel launched a $30 billion intervention to shore up the currency and fend off inflationary pressure, with price growth already running at 3.8% in September, above its 1% to 3% annual target. Still, by the following Friday, the market was expecting up to 75 basis points of rate cuts by year-end as Israel countered the economic toll on its almost $500 billion economy. A Soviet-era steel plant in the southern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhzhia has managed so far to keep running in defense of staff shortages, blocked exports, and power blackouts, and the threat of Russian missile attacks. It shut down temporarily last year for the first time since World War II, and director Roman Slobodianuk knows its future, and that of Ukraine's once mighty steel industry more broadly, is in doubt until producers can get steel to markets via the Black Sea, where Russia continues to pose a threat to shipping. There is little prospect of recovery for a sector second only to agriculture in its importance to Ukraine's economy. If we do not have open seaports, our industry will not survive, and all other industries will follow us. Alexander Kalenkov, head of Ukraine's Steelmakers Union. The union statistics explains the assessments in Soviet times. Ukraine produced more than 50 million tons annually. That fell to 22 million tons by 2021, and after Russia invaded last year, output hits 6.3 million in 2022. The slump is explained in part by Russia's territorial gains that have led to the loss of control over or destruction of giant plants, notably in Mariupol, where the Azovstal steelworks was the scene of some of the fighting of the conflict. Another small bright spot is domestic demand, which is rising as Ukraine shuns out more weapons, builds bomb shelters, and begins to rebuild towns and cities damaged during the war. But even with consumption nearly doubling to 2.6 million tons between January and September, that is not enough to sustain a sector that used to export 4/5 of its output. China has stepped up spending to replace Western-made technology with domestic alternatives as Washington tightens curb on high-tech exports to its rival. According to government standards, research documents, and 4 people familiar with the matter, China has spent heavily on replacing computer equipment, and the telecom and financial sectors are probably the next targets, said 2 people familiar with the industries. State-backed researchers also identified digital payments as particularly vulnerable to possible Western hacking. According to a review of their work making a push to indigenize such technology likely, the number of tenders from state-owned enterprises, governments, and military bodies to nationalize equipment doubled to 235 from 119 in the 12 months after September 2022. According to a finance ministry database, in the same period, the value of awarded projects listed on the database totaled 156.9 million yuan, or more than triple the previous year, while the database represents only a fraction of tender bids nationwide, it is the largest collection of state tenders publicly available and mirrors third-party data. China spent 1.4 trillion yuan, that is $191 billion, replacing foreign hardware and software in 2022, marking a year-on-year increase of 16.2%, according to IT research firm First New Voice. Japanese policymakers maintained their warning to investors against selling the yen on Thursday, in the wake of the currency's renewed slide beyond 150 to the dollar, a level seen by traders as authorities' threshold for intervention. It's important for currency rates to move stably, reflecting fundamentals. Excess volatility is undesirable, Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary Hideki Murray told a regular news conference. When asked about the yen declines, he declined to comment on whether Japan will intervene in the currency market. Finance Minister Chunichi Suzuki also told reporters earlier on Thursday that authorities were watching markets with a sense of urgency, but did not make any comments about intervention. The Japanese yen weakened to a fresh one-year low of 150.50 per dollar on Thursday and was not far off the 151.94 it touched in October last year, which prompted Japan to intervene in the currency markets. While a weak yen boost exporters' profits, it has recently become a headache for Japanese policymakers as it inflates the cost of raw materials imports and household cost of living. Authorities tend to escalate their warnings when currency intervention is imminent, saying they stand ready to take decisive action and that they won't rule out any options. The yen's falls, driven by the gap between US and Japanese interest rates, will likely keep pressure on the Bank of Japan to tweak its policy of capping long-term yields around zero. Britain will set up the world's first artificial intelligence safety institute, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said on Thursday, ahead of a global summit next week that he has convened to examine the risk of the technology. The institute will examine, evaluate, and test new types of AI so that we understand what new model is capable of, exploring all the risks from social harms like bias and misinformation through to the most extreme risks, he said. Britain is bringing together AI companies, political leaders, and experts at Bletchley Park on November 1st to 2nd to discuss what some see as an existential danger posed by AI, with an aim of building an international consensus on its safe development. Sunak wants Britain to be a global leader in AI safety, carving out a role after Brexit between the competing economic blocs of the United States, China, and European Union. Around 100 participants will discuss subjects including the unpredictable advances of AI and the potential for humans to lose control of it. According to the agenda, the UK government has published a report on Frontier AI, the cutting-edge general-purpose models that the summit will focus on. The report will inform discussions about risks such as societal harms, misuse and loss of control, the government said. Sunak said that while AI will boost economic growth, advance human capability, and solve problems once thought beyond us, it also brings new dangers and new fears. The responsible thing for me to do is to address those fears head-on, giving you the peace of mind that we will keep you safe while making sure you and your children have all the opportunities for a better future that AI can bring, he said. That is the size of top accolade global news updates. You can follow us on our social media platforms as displayed on your screen. Happy Thursday.